Prepare for warp speed as we embark on a voyage through the vast expanse of science fiction in movies and television series. From distant planets to alien civilizations, we delve into the heart of the unknown, unraveling the tales that have captivated audiences for generations. Get ready to unlock the secrets of the universe on Code Flix.
Hello and welcome to Code Flix, the podcast where we take a deep dive into your favorite sci-fi and fantasy TV shows and movies. I'm Andre Bonner, and in today's episode, we'll be decoding the language of the extraterrestrials in the movie Arrival. So this movie, based on the trailers, looks like something that you could equate to being a first contact movie that evokes some fear in the human race, especially in the fact that they are barely understanding some of the language that is being used. And the words that they first get to translate equate to weapon. What do we do as a human race when confronted with this? This is an interesting movie. Arrival is a 2016 American science fiction drama film directed by Denis Villeneuve and adapted by Eric Heresser, who conceived the project as a spec script based on the 1998 movie short story Story of Your Life by Ted Chiang. The film stars Amy Adams as Louise Banks, a linguist enlisted by the United States Army to discover how to communicate with extraterrestrials who have arrived on Earth before tensions lead to war. Jeremy Renner, Forrest Whitaker, and Michael Stahlberg appear in supporting roles. Arrival had its world premiere at the Venice Film Festival on September 1st, 2016, and was released theatrically in the United States by Paramount Pictures on November 11, 2016. It grossed $203 million worldwide and received critical acclaim, with particular praise for Adams' performance, Villeneuve's direction, and the exploration of communication with extraterrestrial intelligence. Considered one of the best films of 2016, Arrival appeared on numerous critics' year-end lists and was selected by the American Film Institute as one of the 10 movies of the year. It received 8 nominations at the 89th Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Cinematography, Best Adapted Screenplay, and 1 Best Sound Editing. For her performance, Adams received nominations for a BAFTA, SAG, Critics' Choice, and at the 74th Golden Globe Awards, Adams was nominated for the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress, and Joanne Johnson was nominated for the Golden Globe Award for Best Original Score. The film was awarded the Ray Bradbury Award for Outstanding Dramatic Presentation and the Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation in 2017. The score by Johannesson was nominated for Best Score Soundtrack for Visual Media at the 60th Grammy Awards. Linguist Louise Banks' daughter Hannah dies at the age of 12 from an incurable illness. 12 extraterrestrial spacecraft hover over various locations across the Earth. In the ensuing widespread panic, affected nations send military and scientific experts to monitor and study them. In the United States, U.S. Army Colonel Weber recruits Banks and physicist Ian Donnelly to study the craft above Montana. On board, Banks and Donnelly make contact with two cephalopod-like seven-limbed aliens, whom they call heptapods. Donnelly nicknames these Abbott and Costello. Banks and Donnelly research the complex written language of the heptapods, consisting of palindromic phrases written with circular symbols, and share the results with other nations. As Banks studies the language, she starts to have flashback-like visions of her daughter. When Banks is able to establish sufficient shared vocabulary to ask why the heptapods have come, they answer with a statement that would be translated as offer weapon. China interprets this as use weapon, prompting them to break off communications and with other nations, and other nations follow. Banks argues that the symbol interpreted as weapon can be more abstractly related to the concepts of means or tool. China's translation likely results from interacting with the heptapods using Mahjong, a highly competitive game. Rogue soldiers plant a bomb in the Montana craft. Unaware, Banks and Donnelly re-enter the alien vessel, and the aliens give them a more complex message just before the bomb explodes. One of the aliens ejects Donnelly and Banks from the vessel, knocking them unconscious. When they awake, the heptapod craft had moved beyond reach, and the U.S. military is preparing to evacuate in case of retaliation. China's General Shang issues an ultimatum to his local alien craft, demanding that it leave China within 24 hours. Russia, Pakistan, and Sudan follow suit. Communications between the international research teams are terminated as worldwide panic sets in. Donnelly discovers that the symbol for time is present throughout the message, and the writing occupies exactly 1/12 of the three-dimensional space into which it is projected. Banks suggests that the full message is split between the 12 crafts, and that the heptapods would want all the nations to collaborate in order to decipher it. Banks goes alone to the Montana craft, which sends down a transport pod. Abbott has been mortally injured as a result of the explosion. Costello explains that they have come to help humanity because in 3,000 years' time, they will need humanity's help in return. Banks realizes the weapon in their language. Learning the language alters humans' linear perception of time, allowing them to experience memories of future events. Banks' visions of her daughter are revealed to be premonitions. Her daughter will not be born until sometime in the future. Banks returns to the camp as it is being evacuated and tells Donnelly that the aliens' language is the tool that was meant by the word weapon. She has a premonition of a United States event celebrating global unity, achieved by deciphering the heptapod's language. At the event, General Shang of China thanks Banks for persuading him to stop the attack. When she called his private number and recited his wife's dying words, he then shows her his private number and whispers his wife's name into her ear. In the present, Banks takes CIA agent Harplin's satellite phone from a table and calls Shang's private number to recite the words. The Chinese announce that they are standing down and releasing their 12th of the message. The other countries follow suit and the 12 spacecraft depart. Based on what she had learned, she writes and publishes a book called The Universal Language a guide to the heptapod language, which will eventually teach humanity to perceive time the same way as the heptapods. During the evacuation, Donnelly expresses his love for Banks. They talk about their life choices and whether he would change them if he could see her life from beginning to end. Banks knows that she will agree to have a child with him despite knowing their fate, that Hannah will die from an incurable disease, and that Donnelly will leave them both as a result of her revealing that she knew this. Here are some key themes and symbols in Arrival. Themes: language and communication. The central theme of Arrival is the power and intricacies of language and communication. The film delves into how language shapes our perception of reality and influences our understanding of time and existence. The process of deciphering the alien language serves as a metaphor for breaking down barriers and fostering mutual understanding. Time and perception. Arrival explores the concept of nonlinear time, challenging the traditional language perception of past, present, and future. The alien language allows Louise to experience time differently, seeing her life events in a non-linear, non-sequential manner. This theme raises questions about determinism, free will, and the nature of time itself. Grief and acceptance. The film addresses themes of grief, loss, and acceptance through Louise's personal journey. Her premonitions of her daughter's life and eventual death underscore the emotional weight of knowing the future and accepting it, despite the inevitable pain. Unity and cooperation. Arrival advocates for global unity and cooperation in the face of common challenge. The story emphasizes the importance of working together across nations and cultures to solve problems and achieve a greater understanding. Chance and Destiny. The film examines the interplay between choice and destiny. Despite knowing the future, Louise embraces her life choices, suggesting that the value of her life lies in the experiences and relationships we build regardless of their outcomes. Symbols. The heptapods. The alien species called heptapods symbolize the unknown and the potential for new understanding. Their arrival prompts humanity to recover its approach to communication and cooperation. Their nonlinear perception of time and unique language challenge human concepts of reality and time. The circular language. The heptapod's written language, composed of complex circular symbols, symbolizes the film's nonlinear concept of time. Each symbol represents a sentence with no beginning or end, reflecting the idea that time is a continuous loop rather than a straight line. The whiteboard. The whiteboard used by Louise and Ian symbolizes the process of learning and decoding. It represents the effort to bridge the gap between human and alien understanding and the incremental progress in communication. Louise's visions. Louise's visions of her daughter Hannah and their life together symbolize the film's exploration of memory, foresight, and the emotional resonance of knowing one's future. These visions highlight the theme of acceptance and the intertwined nature of joy and sorrow. The shell. The alien spacecraft, referred to as the shell, symbolize the mysterious and protective barrier between humans and the unknown. Its design and the gradual opening of its interior reflect the unfolding process of understanding and discovery. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. While not a physical symbol, Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is a conceptual symbol in the film. It posits that the structure of language affects its speaker's worldview and cognition. The film uses this hypothesis to explore how learning the heptapod language alters Louis' perception of time and reality. Arrival is a profound exploration of language, time, and human experience. Its themes of communication, unity, and acceptance are enriched by powerful symbols such as the heptapods, their circular language, Louise's journey. The film invites viewers to reconsider their understanding of time and the impact of language on perception, ultimately presenting a message of hope, cooperation, and enduring human spirit. Here's a character analysis of the main characters. Dr. Louise Banks, played by Amy Adams. Louise is a linguistic professor and the film's protagonist. She is intelligent, determined, and compassionate. Louise's expertise in language and communication is crucial in deciphering the aliens' language. Her journey involves both personal and professional challenges. As she grapples with the nonlinear perception of time, Louise's character embodies the film's themes of understanding and empathy. Ian Donnelly, played by Jeremy Renner. Ian is a theoretical physicist who works alongside Louise to understand the aliens' message. He is analytical, curious, and supportive. Ian's scientific approach complements Louise's linguistic skills, highlighting the interdisciplinary nature of their mission. Her character provides a rational perspective and evolves to deeply respect Louise's methods and insights. Colonel Weber, played by Forrest Whitaker. Weber is a pragmatic military officer overseeing the alien contact mission. He is authoritative, cautious, and results driven. Weber's character represents the military's strategic interests and the pressure to achieve quick answers. His interactions with Louise and Ian reflect the tension between scientific inquiry and military urgency. General Shang, played by Tizma. General Shang is a key figure in the Chinese military, representing one of the global responses to the alien arrival. He is initially seen as potentially adversary due to geopolitical tensions. However, Chang's character undergoes a pivotal transformation, illustrating the importance of global cooperation and shared understanding. Hannah. Hannah is Louise's daughter, whose life and fate are central to the film's exploration of time and memory. Her character, though not present in the traditional narrative sense, profoundly influences Louise's decisions and experiences. Hannah represents the personal stakes involved in Louise's work and the emotional depth of the story. Here's a detailed overview of the production and design elements of the film. Production. Director and screenwriter. Directed by Denis Villeneuve, known for his meticulous and visually striking films. The screenplay was adapted by Eric Hessner from Ted Chiang's short story, Story of Your Life. Cast. Amy Adams as Dr. Louise Banks, a linguist recruited to communicate with the aliens. Jeremy Renner as Ian Donnelly, a physicist who works alongside Louise. Forrest Whitaker as Colonel Weber, a military officer overseeing the operation. Filming locations. Principal photography took place in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. The primary alien landing site was filmed at Bas-Saint-Laurent, Quebec, utilizing the area's natural landscapes to create a visually distinctive setting. Design, visual effects, and cinematography. The visual effects handled by companies such as Framestore and Hybrid created the alien spacecraft and the heptapods. The extraterrestrial beings, the effects were designed to be realistic and seamless, integrated with the live action footage. Cinematography by Bradford Young emphasizes the natural lighting and a muted color palette, enhancing the film's introspective and contemplative tone. Set design. The design of the alien spacecraft interior is a minimalistic and outerworldly, featuring a large cavernous space with a misty atmosphere. The clean, abstract lines and stark black and white contrasts help create a sense of the unknown. Human environments, such as the military camp, are depicted with a utilitarian realism, contrasting with the alien aesthetic. Costume design. The costume design by Renee April includes practical and realistic outfits for the military and scientists. The hazmat suits worn by the characters when they enter the alien spacecraft are designed to look functional and plausible. Sound design and music. The sound design by Sylvain Bellemare plays a crucial role in creating the film's atmosphere. The sounds of the heptapods and their environment are designed to be alien and unsettling. The musical score by Johan Jonassen is an integral to the film's emotional impact, blending orchestral and electronic elements to enhance a sense of mystery and wonder. Arrival received widespread acclaim for its thought-provoking story, direction, and performances, particularly Amy Adams. The technical achievements as well. Critics praised its intelligent and emotional approach to science fiction. The film was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay. It won the Oscar for the Best Sound Editing. It also received numerous and other accolades and nominations. Arrival is considered one of the best science fiction films of the 21st century. Its exploration of complex themes through humanistic lens has influenced subsequent films in the genre. Arrival set a new standard for science fiction films, emphasizing intellectual depth and emotional resonance. Its success demonstrated that audiences are receptive to thoughtful, character-driven narratives within the genre, paving the way for similar films that explore profound questions about humanity and our place in the universe. At the beginning of the film, we're not aware of Louise's future life, or the way how it is being shown to us is as if this is what Louise's life is like. But then we realize that this is her future, that her daughter Anna dies of an incurable disease. And initially we are trusted into this emotional state of trying to understand or empathize with Louise because of what we are seeing. This puts us in that place of wanting to understand more about who she is as a character. This grounds us in the story, actually. when the 12 ships arrive, we get to see the reaction of all the different news media reporting on the event. This is so accurate to what we can expect if the human race were to encounter a similar phenomena. UFOs that just appear literally overnight, and we are not sure of what they represent, what they are there for, why they have come. So everybody wants to talk about it, try to understand why. So eventually, of course, the military recruits Louise after much prodding because they want to find a way to communicate with the aliens. And of course, her initial reluctance, like any normal human being, would be very reluctant in a situation like this. No matter how much training you have, no matter what you have dealt with in the past, something like this, when you are posed with a challenge of this is not earthly, we don't quite understand what language means to these beings, these aliens. We don't even know if the way how we understand or how we conceptualize things will translate well to an alien species. Because if one descends tomorrow, we have to just hope that the best people, the scientists, all of these people can live up to that challenge, up to that, being able to look at a problem like this and break it up and find a solution to something that doesn't have any equality or equivalent in our understanding. So, of course, they teamed up with a fellow scientist who seems to understand the goal and what you should hope for in a first contact kind of circumstance or situation. And they do agree on the approach to take in order to establish communication with these aliens, these beings. After they are taken onto the ship, and they are initially, just like with anything else, to an experience, you're scared, you're shocked, you're in all sort of emotions at the same time. Perhaps even a little bit of curiosity in there because you are trying to understand what you can do and how they have come here, and you're in the center of it. At least that's how I am looking at it. So Louise develops the idea of using writing to communicate with the heptapods, because by now they would have seen the alien creatures. They would be able to look at them and give them a description. So though we don't know what they are called or what they would like to be called, we can see that they have 7 legs like octopus, and so octopus-like. And so we initially can say heptapods. It's like the idea that even the person who had designed, or a person who developed communication with primates, their first interaction perhaps wasn't the most complex. It probably was just a simple way to start the process of understanding and conveying some kind of style of communication. So I think that was interesting to see, of course, writing her name and allowing them, that's the heptapods, to attempt to give their name or write her name. Because initially that's what they would do. They would just copy what she has given so that they show that they understand you are Louise, you are Ian, this is such and that is such and such. But of course, because their spoken language is a little bit more difficult to decipher in terms of getting difference in the different screeching or clicking, the noises that they make is a little bit different. And compared to human speech, the conveyance of the voice, me talking now, is a series of grunts that we have come to appreciate over time as language. It's the same thing for an alien species looking onto us and just hearing us just grunting and wondering what do they mean? What could they possibly be talking about? However, this approach seems to work. And so, of course, they nickname Louise and Ian nickname the heptapods that they meet as Abbott and Costello. The taller of the two is Abbott, and the other one is Costello. Abbott seems to take a few seconds and then comes back and starts writing the ink, spraying the ink, the fluid that forms a symbol. And we see them do this, and it seems so awesome at the time because of the way how they do their thing. And the symbol is formed out of this. So they have established some basis of communication. And so Louise and Ian, they realize that the symbols are palindromic and consist of complex phrases. However, they convey meaning, but not context. So can you imagine you talking to someone, and especially with the English language, there are so many different words and they can be used in different ways. And that's where context comes in. Understanding context in a language is important for conveying the message. Now, if you don't have context, the only thing you can go on is what does this particular phrase mean and how it is done. The symbols are circular and they seem to don't have a beginning or an end. It is just the way how they are patterned that makes them unique and make them convey a different meaning. And so that's the only thing that they can use. Now, of course, all of the research so far is shared with the global scientific community, which is something I love to see. I love the fact that you can show that, hey, this is not just a USA or, American conveyance of the alien and we are the smartest people, so we keep all of the information. No, they are communicating and they are scientists. And in the real world, this is typically how they do work. Everyone conducting the same research on the same data to come and agree or to come to an understanding of the results. If the results can be replicated, then, and that is a scientific method, we try to analyze and get everything working in the same way. And if it doesn't, there must be a reason. And then we have to discard it. So whatever we find that is continuously being replicated, that is what we will move forward with. If we can continuously get the same result, then we'll move forward. And so this was particularly interesting to me, that the other 11 locations are reporting similar findings. And so it bridges the narrative to say, hey, we are in 21st century and we are not alone. We can communicate with one another and we can share our findings because we're trying to reach the same end goal. And we'll see more of this as talk more about the film. So after studying the vocabulary of the heptapods, Louise is so in tune with it. And this is something that has happened to me as someone who is in tech. You start dream about some of the problems and the solutions. And they often say that this is how your brain works, that it doesn't stop working. So when you are confounded, you take a break and you go walk. You don't force yourself to continuously think, but your brain takes over and says, okay, this is something important. We need to figure out this thing. And so you have to dream about it. And when you wake up, you have the solution. Or in most cases, you have an idea, a better idea of something, something didn't click at you while you were conscious about it because you were using just a minimal part of your brain to process that part. So when your brain get the time to maximize the usage and focus in, it gets to do that kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting that they use that to say this is where she starts to get into the actual code or into the language. And so she starts to have these dreams and waking visions of her future life, which is a part of the narrative that this language is what enables one to become in tune with with time itself. So you perceive time once you understand the language, or you're getting to understand the language, you are starting to perceive time in a cyclical fashion. You can see it end and begin in the same, just as we would expect in such a situation. After several months of work figuring out the vocabulary of the heptapod, Louise is pressured to ask the purpose of the heptapod because right up until now, the military has been pressuring her to try and find out what is it that they are here for. And other nations are, curious about the same thing. And it is natural to be curious about that because you don't know. This is a advanced race, apparently, that has mastered travel, right, to different planets, right? And apparently the spaceships, the design of it and the way how they function is beyond what humans can understand. And so we are naturally fearful of things we don't understand, the unknown, dark. And so this is something that anybody would want the question to, everybody would want the question to. But of course, understanding what Louise was trying to accomplish, was she was trying to ensure that she was double checking the work and getting, and sometimes that happens. You have to make sure that you get the thing correct because you don't want to misinterpret it. And of course, the answer to the question, because, what is your purpose of a weapon? This answer is an ambiguous answer to the question. What the hell could this mean? Of a weapon. The fact that weapon is even in the phrase, what could that mean? Of course, the Chinese interpret as use weapon, which makes them break communication with everyone and go radio silent. And even some other countries following China's example decide to do that same time. Okay, we don't know what they mean, but apparently they're talking about weapons now. This is serious. Luis argues to the military that, hey, the symbol weapon, it can be interpreted abstractly as means or tools. So why are we jumping the gun to start mobilizing and running around like chickens without our heads? We need to ask or get to the bottom of this. And the fact that the Chinese were using Mahjong as a competitive game to interact with the heptapods, this could be the reason why we got that response. So we need to check. We need to question them more. The soldiers allow Louise and Ian to go onto the ship with no escort. And of course, they did that because really and truly, they were planning to wipe out the heptapods with a bomb. And they didn't want to alert the heptapods or, having a, sympathy, I think. Because you could have tried stopping her and Ian and say, hey, you can't go, right? You got to go with a military escort. And I think that was a bit risky too. They eventually get to ask heptapods now to explain what is meant by a weapon. And of course, the heptapods are aware that the bomb has been planted and they have little time really. So they basically just release the story, the epistle, the message, this big block of information, and throws off everything. And just as the bombs explode, Abbott pushes out Louise and Ian out of the spacecraft, which was really, really cool. I just see it lift up it. What do you call that again? Limb. With there's something, that name for that word. I don't have it, but pushes out that limb as if it's like a hand, like pushing away. So it pushes them out, saving their life. Now Louise awakens after recovering from the explosion, after a concussion. Okay. And the heptapod ship has moved out of the reach of the military. Because, of course, we can't really trust them right now because we don't know what we're not going to do at any point. And it wasn't really the military because they didn't get any orders to start attacking them. It was just some rogue soldiers. So, yeah, they were doing the right thing by doing that. The heptapods, that is. Now, General Shang sends a message to the heptapods that he wants them to leave China within 24 hours. Russia and Pakistan, they do the same. And of course, this sends the world into a frenzy because everyone now is like, what is going to happen? Are we going to have Armageddon? What is going to happen? Because the heptapods clearly don't look like them ready to even move, really. They might have positioned themselves now for strike, and we don't know if they can counter-strike even worse than human beings can. So what do we do? Now, Ian has been working on the message, trying to decipher it. Louise was, I would say, not necessarily out of it, but she has now been dreaming a lot in the language. She is now fully immersed, and so she is perceiving time. And when something like this is happening to you and you're not sure how to, it messes with you. It makes you feel like you're going insane, and you can see the distress on her. And that was very good. That was a very good portrayal. I think it gives credence to someone who is, actively in trauma, in a situation that they're not fully capable or understanding what's going on. Now, Ian figured out that time is present, the symbol time is present throughout the message, which gives him an idea of the fact that this message is perhaps something to do with how time is manipulated. And Louis suggested that the message might just be one of 12, meaning it's incomplete, meaning it's useless without all the other 11. While everything is going on, chaos ensues. Louise is drawn to the craft that is sent down from the heptapod ship. Now she's perceiving time, so she would have seen, she would be acclimatized now to it. It's almost like she reached an equilibrium with it. She's kind of balancing the force of time, and she recognizes that this is what's going to happen now. So she is not confused, but she now understands, and so she goes with it. And she's taken aboard the alien ship, the heptapod ship. So, of course, this is what she believes is the only way to figure out what is happening, how to fix everything. When she's taken aboard, she sees Costello, and he tells her that basically we're gonna need humanity help in about 3,000 years. And Ting, she asked about Abbott, and until I say Abbott was mortally wounded, and all of this is done in symbols, right? But she understands everything now, so she's reading it as they are, So as Louise figures out that weapon in their language, she matches it now to the way that she's perceiving time and realizes that the memories that she's been having, memories of the future, premonitions into her future life, into what will happen. The visions that Louise has been having of her future daughter that will be born and will die, and how she will end up losing her husband as well. When Louise returns to camp, she realizing that what she has to do is to contact the general based on the premonition that she had about the general meeting the general at the UN event. She persuades him by calling him, and him call off the strike on the aliens. Can you imagine? Somebody call you, you are set on doing something, and somebody just call you out of the blues and say, you need to stop where you do, because this is not what's going to happen. And them tell you what's going to happen in a way you can understand. Only you know. Because, and the fact that he would trust her words is because she was able to tell him something that nobody else would have possibly knew his dying words of his wife. Can you imagine? You were there with your wife when she was dying, nobody else was around, and you are pretty sure nobody no bug the place so that nobody didn't hear her. And the person tell you, say, this is what your dying wife said to you. Now that is something crazy. That, and of course, after all of this, the ships, they depart. They just as they came, they went, just like that. So here are my theories and some plot points that I really have to question. And these questions, as usual, are directed at how I perceived this particular film. Why did the heptapod ships choose those 12 locations to land precariously? I think about the fact that as a species, and their reason for coming was to unite humanity in a common goal. They are able to perceive time as well. So being able to realize that they're going to need humanity's help. And the only way that humanity can help is to be unified. And yes, at the same time, because they already know what's going to happen and they know that the first step or the step that they have to take is to be able to do this, meant that them landing in those locations was always going to happen in some reality. This is something that is explored in a lot of sci-fi movies and TV shows that look at time, the idea of this, it would have happened anyways. There was no other way that it could have happened because it was set, it was predestined. How come the military leading the scientific community? So I understand that in certain circumstances, it is important to have certain leadership changes the way how things normally work. So the way how things normally work in a non-emergency situation is that civilians basically leading the charge in terms of what is happening. But in a emergency situation, in the face of something like this, that could be, yes, and is stated as an extraterrestrial, extra situation, super serious situation, you want to involve the military and you want the military to be able to dictate how we move forward because we need strategic and we need intelligence. Intelligence comes in many forms, military wise, as well as working with civilians who might have a little bit more freedom in terms of how they work, because the military intelligence wants to find a way to have an understanding of their enemy, understanding of their foe, and that is how they would look at it. But scientists, civilians are not looking at it in terms of that. They're looking at it in terms of this is something we don't understand. We don't know if it is good or bad yet. We haven't determined that because we are trying to figure out what it is in the first place and what their reasoning for landing here, why they came. You know, even their actions, it could be misinterpreted. So, yeah. Why did China and other countries break off contact? And this is something that is probably the way how they frame it. Because, yes, Chinese is always framed in American movies as being very quick to rush into to war, or have this kind of warlike kind of culture. But it's not necessarily because of that, I guess. And yes, it's stereotypical, but aside from that, I feel like in a situation where you have clearly no idea what's going on, you want to make sure that you're in a defensive posture. Now, what I do understand from the Chinese culture, they have quite a few martial arts, right? And most of their martial arts are centered around defensive, being able to use your enemies or your foes, your interlocutor, your adversaries' energy against them. And the only way you'll be able to do that is to understand your enemy, understand who they are. And I'm just puzzled as to why it would be a good choice to have the Chinese break off contact. If you want to understand your enemy, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. So you need to speak to one another. You need to continue the contact that you have set up. I just didn't see that reason. Maybe I'm looking at it differently. Why did General Shang come up to Louise at the US event and give her all she needed in order to stop him in her premonition? And as I was watching it and seeing it unfold, I was thinking to myself, this is another case of putting the horse before the cart. And it works masterfully because the way how the film conveys time as being this cyclical thing that doesn't have a beginning or an end. So it's essentially going around. So there's no starting point or end point. And perhaps because the simplest answer is that Louise told him, while she was telling him all of the stuff that she was to tell him, she told him, me gonna need you to come up to me at the UN event and show me a phone and whatever. Because General Chang, in that premonition, mentions that, I don't know why I felt like you needed to see this, but me gonna show you my private phone number. So yeah, it's kind of weird. And in Doctor Who, which is a series I want to do on this podcast, so stay tuned for that. They play with that concept a lot. Wibbly wobbly, they call it timey-wimey, to just kind of get across the idea that time is weird. And the whole concept of time in Arrival is bonkers because it doesn't leave room for anything to change. There's no such thing as something altering time. Anyone who learns the heptapod language should be able to perceive time in the way that Louise does, right? I'm just saying. I think so, right? And why I'm thinking this way is because Louise was able to perceive time not just for herself, not just for her life, but for other persons. The fact that she could talk about something that is happening with someone in their life. And yes, because we all have to interact with someone else, that would make sense that if everyone is connected or united, we should be able to all perceive time. I don't know if Ian, because Ian, I assume that is him or the father of the child, and he is the husband. So, Ian, if he had studied the language completely, he should have that power as well, which it didn't seem so because all this time only Louise knew, and she didn't tell him, and it led to him leaving. So, yeah. And the last question is, couldn't the misunderstanding of the symbols be avoided if they were open with the methods for establishing communication with the alien race? I think so. But at the same time, I understand that even though they were all trying to figure out what was happening with their own spaceship, their own alien, because they were confronted with two options. One, the preservation of their culture, their way of life, in their country. Each country wanted to make sure that they were first secure, and then them, if they felt like it, they could share whatever they learned with. And I think, as I mentioned, that with the scientific method, it's everyone conducting the same experiment and trying to prove the experiment. The facts from the experiment should line up. If this is something, it must be replicable, it must be repeatable. So I think that if the approach is that, all right, we're trying to use Mahjong, for instance, in this case, and the US are using so and so, then obviously the message is going to be different because you're doing a different method trying to reach the same result. That doesn't necessarily work unless you're able to show a correlation between the both methods. So if one is able to work a particular way and you're able to show that it can correlate with the other method, then yes, I believe that would be enough to say, yes, we have the correct thing. And really and truly, we shouldn't be trying to pressure persons to get the answer, because when you pressure someone to get the answer, they will find anything just to appease, right? Just to get you off them back and not necessarily do it correctly. And if they're not doing it correctly, you're going to get bollocks results that don't make no sense. So that's what I think. Share your own favorite arrival moments and theories. Whether you thought that you agreed with some of my theories and how I interpreted the film. So, in this episode, we looked at arrival, the heptapods arrived, how that arrival triggered several events and set certain situations and things happening. We looked at the themes and the symbols and the literal symbols that were used as a written language of the heptapods. We looked at the characters, how Ian and Louis' role played masterfully by the actors. We looked at the production and design and what went into that. I do like the fact that they did a lot of research, or they had persons on hand to give some pointers as to what it would look like to have first contact with a alien species. We looked at some of my interpretations and my theories based on some of the questions that I've been thinking about since watching this film. And I'll definitely rewatch again. So at this time, I'd like to encourage you to subscribe and follow the podcast for future deep dives in a world of science fiction. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. We're on a road to 500. Let's do it, guys. See you next time.